Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me, as they do at this time each and every week, we got the guys from More Important Issues. Landon Raby is here. Landon, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good, man. Ready to get back at it. Another week. I feel like not a sad podcast this time, so I'm excited for it.
Not sad.
Yeah.
More just, it's just a long question mark. That's what this podcast is just a big question mark, because I don't know how any Vol fan, analyst, whomever can look at this team and go, I don't know. Like, I was tagged in a on the Twitter account by I forgot who it was, but with the Tennessee versus Vols graphic, and I think John Tweet Sports, UGA guy, tagged us and like, your thoughts, and I was like, I did use the Dumb and Dumber Lloyd Christmas gif of like, I don't know, where he's just in there. He's like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea right now. We'll see. Check back in on Friday how I feel about Tennessee, Alabama, because right now I think both fan bases are like, I don't know, and I don't want to watch it, because this could be really terrible for both of our psyches here on Saturday afternoon in Knoxville, Tennessee. But also here, fellow co-host of More Important Issues, Caleb Mitchell. Caleb, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Never will complain about a Florida win, so we have that going for us. It is supposed to be the most exciting time of the year. I'm excited for Saturday. I mean, I think it could go, like you said, it's not like one or two ways Tennessee could lose this. I mean, it could go a million different ways, especially with the team across the way, a team that can put up 28 straight on the best team in college football for the last, 5 years. I mean, Jim Harbaugh cheated, okay? And then also give up 28 straight to what looks like one of the worst offenses in the SEC outside of Tennessee the last two first halves.
Yeah.
So there's a weird one across the way waiting for you. It could go several different ways, but it's the third Saturday in October. This is the game that we didn't just have circled on our schedule. Like, this is what we live for. So I'm pretty excited for this weekend.
Are you wearing all black for the game, or are you doing the orange out?
Number one, I'm too superstitious.
Yeah.
Let's say I wasn't in a morning period. I wore black to the Florida game.
Yeah.
I got to keep wearing black until it doesn't work.
Did anyone say anything to you about wearing black?
The guy next to me asked me, he said, so you just went opposite. I was in the white section. He said, so you just went opposite of the white section? I explained to him what was going on. He said, well, I thank you for not going to any more away games. So we've already gotten a thank you for your service. I'll do my best.
This is you're built different, Caleb. Like, people don't even realize there's like, he's out here in all black, and they have their guesses, and they don't actually know. You don't want to do this. Like, you're taking one for the team. You would love to wear all orange on Saturday, but you can't for the Vols.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to. I have a very awesome tracksuit that Landon wants me to wear, but I cannot do it. It was Tennessee gear, by the way. It was I wore a black old UT logo baseball hat, and then I had the Rick Barnes pullover. So, I mean, it was all UT stuff. Yeah. And also it did feel good to protest. I've been in the white section for like 6 straight checker kneelings. Can we switch it up at some point?
Wow.
Yeah. It's insane.
Tweet at Danny White. He might respond. Might get a quote tweet out of it.
That's a good point. 2 years ago, he shows up at my house on Saturday.
Danny White?
No, not Caleb. But this is about Danny White. And it's like 6 a.m. It's still dark outside. He gets out in that tracksuit. He's like, Danny White says, orange out, I'm going to be oranged out. And I feel like he has to go back to it.
Landon's putting it on you, Caleb.
It was it was 4 a.m. It was
4 a.m.
I have a video of us taking shots at like 5:15 a.m. at the tailgate.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I was going to give us the benefit of the doubt.
No. We didn't have reserved parking at that point, so we had to fight for our spot. And I'll say this, I do listen to Danny White, and I thought this question would be proposed, so I'll ask it for you. It's a great question. Caleb, what would it take for you to wear orange on Saturday? If Danny White releases a video of like someone in my section going, I can hear the ref. I can hear the ref's mic when he's reading aloud the penalty. If he does that before Saturday, I'll wear orange. But I can't hear the ref in and you couldn't hear anything in England.
Yeah.
On Saturday, but that's not a new occurrence to not be able to hear the ref's mic. So get it fixed, and I'll wear orange.
There you go.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think you're going all black on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't have faith in. They've been working on that for like 3 years. I don't know what it is. It's going to take audio engineers the level of the Manhattan Project to get that repaired.
Well, switching gears here a little. I don't have a natural segue to that. I have no idea. I have no natural segue there. Landon, coming out of the Tennessee-Florida game on Saturday night where the Vols won 23-17, how much has your opinion changed about the 2024 Vols after the victory on Saturday to move to 5-1?
I think there's a little bit more positivity with the offense. I feel like there was big plays to be had. Just didn't connect on them. I feel like if you connect on some of those, it looks a lot different. So I'm going to try to stay as positive as I can. When we're talking about the offense and just say, like, I think things are moving in the right direction. Is it a long ways away? Sure. Got to be able to block. Can't shoot yourself in the foot with penalties, when you make first downs and big plays. And then when you get somebody wide ass open behind the defense, you got to hit them. Like that's what this offense does, is like connect on the big plays, run the football, spread everybody out. And Tennessee just hasn't been able to do, that just a combination of things like that. So I'm going to say probably around the same, but I think a little bit better in the right direction with the offense, because I think you had some wrinkles in there. You had some big plays that you just missed on. I think things are moving there. You just got to execute better. That's a very Josh Heupel thing to say, but yeah.
Chaz Nimrod's like the ultimate glass half full, glass half empty test case for Vol fans, because I think half of the incompletions for Nico on Saturday were Chaz Nimrod was the target, but then you watch it back and Chaz Nimrod was open a lot. So it's the glass half full of Chaz Nimrod is getting open, which is good. Glass half empty, he's getting open, but they're not connecting. So what do you do with that if you're not making the most of these opportunities? I don't know. Like I go back and forth on this because separation has been such an issue for these receivers through the first couple weeks. Like that's kind of a big deal that Chaz is getting open, and maybe that is something that finally connects here against Alabama, because you're going to need somebody to break through Caleb, because I think the defense has been elite. The defense has unfortunately given up some back-breaking touchdowns late in the game the last 2 weeks, but outside of that, they've been really good through the last 2 weeks and really through all of SEC play, holding all three opponents under 20 points. But this is the first one where I just don't think you're going to be able to hold Alabama under 20. I don't think this is a game where the offense is going to be able to get away with winning 23-17, even at home. This is one where the Crimson Tide are going to score some. Jalen Milroe is going to put up some points, and the offense is not going to be able to rely on Dylan Sampson and this defense getting him another W, right?
Yeah, I think you look at this Alabama team, and I think you can limit them. You can limit that offense, but I agree. It's not going to be a game that 24 points, 23 really wins this for you. I don't know what that number is. This week I thought, yeah, you scored 24, you probably win the game. Kind of thought that going into Arkansas. I didn't think that would be a thing we'd be talking about, but I thought if you scored 24, you'd probably win that game. I'd say that number's closer to that 30 mark. I mean, this is a team that struggled against South Carolina, who has a really good defensive line, good defensive front. So similar situation there. This is probably a game that if you can find a way to scrap together 30 points, you might win. We'll see. This defense has been really, really solid. If you look at where Alabama's offense has struggled, it's been the turnovers. Can they create turnovers? This isn't a team that feasts on turnovers. So I'm curious how many points that allows Alabama to score. We'll obviously see with that. Offensively, I don't know how this gets fixed other than hitting on big plays. I don't, because Dylan Sampson's giving you all he's got. I mean, without him, this team would probably be 0-3 in SEC play.
I will say the other thing. I'm curious y'all's perspective coming out of Florida, because I think there was like that sentiment of, oh, if Graham Mertz doesn't get hurt, Florida wins that game. I'm like, were y'all watching how Billy Napier was coaching this game? Like,
right.
You can't say that. There's no way. Like,
I don't know how Billy Napier wasn't fired Saturday night.
Like, it was awful. That was one of the worst coaching jobs. I mean, not going for two, the clock run off at the end of the first half. There's all kinds of just like, to be really adamant that like, oh, the Vols weren't going to win that game if Graham Mertz is going to hurt. It's like, I don't know. I don't know about that one.
I will say on the not going for two, we saw it work for LSU later in the night.
Yeah. I mean, they should have gone for two. There's no question. What do you have to lose there?
If I'm in that game, though, it is an away game. You try your best, take your wind out of them right then and there, but it's from 2 yards against Tennessee's defensive line. I could hear an argument for it, and I would dare Tennessee's offense to move the ball 25 yards the way they move the ball. I'd dare him to.
I don't know.
I might even kick an onside kick there and just find out. Like, can we get
just
the ball
don't run
back?
up the middle? Like, I don't know. In space, like, bet on one of the linebackers being able to hit, because they were connecting on those wheel routes all Saturday. Yeah. So I don't know. Like, it would have been terrifying if Florida had gone for two. All the pressure's on Tennessee's defense
on an away game. Yeah, I think in an away situation, like I said, Brian Kelly, it worked for him. He kicks a field goal there as time's dwindling down and they win in overtime. But it's a different environment when, instead of trying to, I mean, you had taken the wind out of the crowd there.
Yeah.
And then you have a chance to
17.
throw. You have a chance to throw a just over the top haymaker, and instead you let it go to the bell, and that's not good as an away team.
But a win's a win. Tennessee 5-1 and control their CFP destiny going into this game on Saturday with Alabama. I don't agree. I've seen some national folks and maybe some Tennessee fans too talk about like this is a playoff eliminator game. I'm like, I don't think that's necessarily true for both these teams. I think it hurts, makes it more complicated, but it's not an eliminator because again, we still there's so many other games to be played that we just don't know how everybody else is going to fall. Over the next couple of weeks, we don't know what Texas-Georgia is going to look like. Georgia looks more beatable than they ever have. That secondary got cooked by a true freshman at home. Van Buren with Mississippi State. Similar offense with Levy and Heupel. Like, maybe that's something. Like, I just let's pump the brakes on this being an elimination game on Saturday against Alabama, because from what we've seen from the SEC this year, expect the unexpected, and every week is just going to be a dogfight for all these teams. And I'm not going to go ahead and just say definitively like the loser of this game on Saturday can't make the CFP, because I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case. Caleb, the most reasonable fan reaction from the game was what coming out that you heard and you talked with folks, and what do you think was the biggest overreaction coming out of this Florida win on Saturday?
I don't know if is there a single reasonable take that has been strong. I think it's all been just kind of, you beat Florida. That's fun. We love to do it, and you should love to do it. No one I've seen has just outright been like, we're back. Like, look out, Alabama. This offense looks better. I mean, they just don't look much better. I think the most reasonable take is like, hey, those chances, I think Landon kind of hit on this a second ago, just those chances were there. You barely missed them. Ball a little long, through the hands, whatever it may be. The chances with the offense are getting closer, and maybe they are. I thought the offensive line played decent. I mean, I think those holding calls were, for the way they were officiating the game, I thought they were egregious. Not that they weren't necessarily holds all the time. So, I mean, I think when you take those out, there's a couple bad plays in there, but it's not as glaring as Arkansas was, where you have Lance Hurd a turnstile at times.
I think he was better in this game. I think he got better as the game went on too.
Yeah, I think they look better in the second half. I mean, that last drive, they moved mountains compared to how they played in the regulation. Biggest overreaction, and I've fed into it a little bit because I don't disagree. This defense secondary giving up big plays, especially linebackers and pass coverage. We had someone though on our show last night. I think they called them soft, our secondary. Like, that's an overreaction. I think they can clean up some mistakes. At the end of the day, they gave up 17 points. So as much as that last touchdown sucked, they gave up 17 points. It doesn't help that your offense can't get a first down and you have to punt it, and then your special teams can't make a play, and they get the ball inside their own inside Tennessee's 40 to start their last drive. So it's not the defense's fault. So that's probably the biggest overreaction I've seen. And I do agree that the defense as a whole they just shot themselves in the foot at inopportune times. But I mean, they played really freaking good football.
Yeah, I mean, Boo Carter played his best game thus far. I mean, he's your only true freshman starter. He had a sack, 1.5 TFLs. He had 7 tackles, I think, total. He was a beast off the edge. Like, Boo Carter is just such a natural star nickel guy that, I mean, he's just going to be a dude. Boo Carter is just going to be a star for the next couple of years. He's the closest thing Tennessee's had to Eric Berry in the back end there. And he's only getting better and better. And then you look at the snap counts, Landon. When they were talking about like the secondary, I don't know. I thought Will Brooks was solid. The only person I think in the back end who really had a rough night was Turrentine. Turrentine missed a lot of tackles and Turrentine struggled. But Christian Charles looked really good. Christian Charles, I think, earned more playing time going into the Alabama game. And then you look at the snaps. I could not believe. Did y'all see how many snaps Ricky Gibson and Jermod McCoy had at the corners?
No.
They both were 70 plus.
Yeah. Doesn't surprise me.
70. They're not rotating at all. No. Like Jalen McMurray had like 6, and I think Jordan Matthews had 1. It was pretty wild. They're not rotating at all at corner. It's like Ricky Gibson, Jermod McCoy, cardio all week long because y'all are playing. Yeah, get ready. Ryan Williams is coming into town on Saturday. Jermod, you are never leaving the field on defense. You are playing every single snap.
And I like that. They played good.
Yeah.
I like Tennessee's corners. We were talking about it last night. Is like, when's the last time Tennessee had like 2 like locked down corners?
Thompson, Taylor.
Freshman
They're
year.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Freshman year, Bryce Thompson.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are the first 2 that came to mind where I'm like, I felt good about Tennessee's corners together.
Yeah. Right. And they were good because they were freshmen. But like if those guys were like juniors, would you say the same about like how good they were? Because
that team just really sucked. So
I would have liked to seen both of them. And I mean, Lante's obviously a really good player with the Saints right now. And I don't know. I would have liked to see Bryce and Alante with this group over 3 years. So they started as freshmen here at Tennessee. I think they would have been pretty good. But it reminds me a little bit of that. Of these 2 just have settled in. I think they're going to be multi-year starters at Tennessee at corner.
Sure. So am I doing overreaction?
Yeah, it's your turn, sir.
Okay. Overreaction. I had a guy behind me yell that he'd rather have Derek Dooley than Josh Heupel. So that's
an overreaction.
It was one where I didn't really have a comeback for because I was just in shock that somebody would even cross somebody's mind.
It's the wrong Ron Burgundy, where I'm not even mad.
and to be fair to that guy, while it is an overreaction, it's hard to say anything in rebuttal to it because it was right as we were going into half, correct, Landon? The second time in 2 games, Tennessee failed to score a point in the first half. So you're like, hey, don't say that about my friend. Don't say that about my coach. Other than that, you're just like,
well, I just want to be like, you're upset now, but you
right.
Like, you really do not believe that.
Yeah, but you can't believe it, but you had to be upset in that moment. I was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just like, he's the best coach since Fulmer. Like, it's not even a debate.
I've never been that mad.
Yeah.
But I live in the moment. And in that moment, I mean, me and my brother considered leaving the game. We were like, this is why are we going to stay here and sit in traffic? I mean, like, we could watch this performance from our couch and be way more comfortable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think what makes me feel better, I don't know if y'all feel this way, and I think Tennessee fans should take solace in this, is that Josh Heupel has never seemed more miserable coaching this team. And I don't mean that to like say like, oh, I'm glad but it's like, it is clearly that post-game presser and him talking about the offense right now, he's just like so over this. Like he is he has never experienced anything like this as a head coach of this kind of offensive struggle where it's just not all coming together. So I think if you're a Tennessee fan, the reason that that's a positive that he is just so like disgusted with what he's seeing from the offense is like he is going to do everything he can to get this right, because yes, he appreciates that his defenses and Dylan Sampson are taking this team to 5-1 to this point, and they're still in the CFP hunt because in spite of his offense, like he is working overtime and tirelessly to figure this out, because as one of the best offensive minds in the sport, I can only imagine what this is actually doing to him each week. And he it's just one of those where I'm glad he's not in the presser where he's like, we're close, we're feeling really good, and you're like, all right, man, like you've been shut out in back-to-back weeks in the first half, like this Florida team is not good, Arkansas was not good, so he's not playing that card. He's like, it's not like this is bad. Like you can just see that he is just really, really annoyed and frustrated with what's going on there, which I think is good. I mean, he's a serious competitor. Like he is such a huge competitor that I think that's a positive that he is dismayed. I don't know. That was my first reaction. I don't know if y'all thought the same.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this over and over about coaches. You can never win a job in a press conference, but you can certainly lose a job in a press conference. I mean, Hugh Freeze might get fired in a press conference this year at this rate. I mean, the takes he's had, the clips he's given out, I mean, have been insane. But if a coach comes in week after week and he's like, we suck this week, and it's like, all right, well, I mean, eventually you're not going to keep your job for being honest. Like eventually you're going to get fired. So you don't win it that way, but you can certainly lose it with the 5-star heart clips and I don't know how much you know about football Blake clips, and like you lose jobs very, very easily and quickly in press conferences. So I mean, I'm not like, he's my guy because of it, but it is nice that you don't hear the excuses and you don't hear the we're so close, like just be patient, like it's coming, or you just don't know what you're watching. Because I comparatively to every coach out there, I don't know what I'm watching, but I know that it doesn't look good. So it is refreshing to hear that. And he's not going to win his job that way, but he's not going to lose it if he kind of.
Well, he also has the cachet, like we've seen, like they've been the number one scoring offense. Like we know, like he's won with Jalen Wright as the lead guy, where they had to run the ball so much last year and change their identity. They had to flip it on its head from what it was in 2022. He overachieved obviously in 2021, but I mean, it's like his credentials, like Heupel is comfortable in his own skin, and he doesn't have to prove anything to Tennessee fans in terms of like, does his offense work, this, that, and the other. He's just more of like, look, I know y'all are frustrated, but I promise you, I'm 10 times more frustrated than you are right now because this is insane.
Yeah, who was it this week, Landon, that dropped the gladiator on us? Are you not entertained? Like, he talked about it last night on the show.
Who was that?
Oh, he was like, I mean, he's like, I mean, the game was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean,
I don't know what it was like for y'all in there, but for me, it was not. I did not enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed the James Pierce strip at the 1. That was pretty awesome, where I was like, that's a top 10 play right there. That's a top 10 player play.
Sure, the Pearl got booed. I enjoyed that.
Did he?
Well, because they were flashing to that kid dancing on screen, and then it flashed to Sturl, and he got booed.
Did you see that kid was on the radio today? He was talking about it like he was like, "Hey, you got to open up the playbook." I respected this kid was just like, "You got to open up the playbook."
Yeah, he's talking to his dad way too much.
He took full credit for the win.
What's the most dad like the dad watching the game, like the most stereotypical like dad on the couch watching the game? Is it what, like you're just sitting there watching the game? What comment is the most dad football comment as he's watching the game?
Oh, it's always a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you okay with Heupel going for it at Tennessee's own 10 in the moment, Landon?
In the moment. I mean, yeah, I was in.
In the moment? Really?
Yeah, in the moment, I'm like, dude, let's do it.
Okay.
Dude, I love.
Wow.
I mean, it was like jumping out of an airplane. I was like, I mean, I would never do it because I'm scared of heights, but I'm glad you're doing it. I'd love to watch. So, yeah, and it was very like it was something we haven't seen before. The heavy package with Jackson Moy. You know, he takes Dylan Sampson out, kind of understands like what we need to do here. Go put Deshaun Bishop in and let him just fall forward.
Yeah.
Let him just stick his nose right in there and pick up a first down. I did love that aspect of it. It wasn't just like, hey, let's go see what happens. I think it was calculated. That move was, and yeah, maybe on your 10-yard line, if it doesn't work, you're probably screwed. But at that point, like your offense isn't moving the football. Like you need some sort of jump start. And I know we ended up punting, I think, on that drive, but I mean, I think Josh Heupel was like, okay, this is how we get going. This is how we get the crowd in it. You know, we start humming after this. It didn't work, but you did pick up a first down, so it didn't hurt you too much.
This is why Coach Heupel needs me on the sideline next to him. Like, you know, you have the get back guy. You need the reasonable, the conscience guy. And that's me, where I'm right next to him after he does this, where I'm like, okay, now you got away with that, but you're wiping that from your memory. That is not something we do going forward. I understand this work, but the lesson here is not, we should do this more often. That's not the lesson. And that's something I definitely had in the back of my mind where I'm like, he pulled this off, and I hope he doesn't come away from this of like, see, being aggressive deep in your own territory with our kind of defense, like this works. Like, it gets our guys. We have Jackson Moy in the backfield, and we can stack it up, and we can get a yard regardless of where we are on the field. It's like, no. That can never happen again. Because I don't know if you're like me in the moment, Caleb, because I'm on the opposite side of Landon. Like, I almost walked out of my house where I was like, this.
You're the Jesus on one shoulder, and I'm the devil.
Yes, that's 100% what's.
Oh, I mean, Chase, people were celebrating around me, and I'm infuriated, yelling, "Don't you ever do that again!" And while they're lined up, I'm turning to my brother and going, "You can't snap this football. You can't snap this football. You're hard count. Ball gets snapped, and I'm just, like, what is happening?"
Yeah, I almost fainted. Like, I'm just like, you can't do this.
It's one of those. It's like, sure, if everyone's like, oh, I mean, it was. Yeah, I'm not saying Landon saying this, but you've seen. I guess that's the biggest overreaction. Like, he's just got balls of steel. He's a genius. And I'm going, only because it worked.
Yeah.
Only, let's be honest. If that's failed, he loses his job before the press conference. We don't have to worry about him losing it there. I mean, that is a job changing mistake if you don't get that.
Yeah. I mean, I was not cheering. Like, I wanted it to happen, but I wasn't like cheering because I did not think he was going to snap it. I was like, there's no way he does it, but I'm in if he does.
See, now you're in. Like, you're fired up. This is the most fired up you've been on this podcast tonight, Landon. You were all in. You got to be honest with yourself. You love that. Like, I think you want that. You don't want to be the reckless guy. You want to see your team be really reckless. And you're like, yeah, let's go for it. Because when it works out, you're like, absolutely, let's go.
Yeah. I think that's our new tush push. Like, we just have Jackson Moy, and he has the tribal tattoo. That I mean, there was no way we weren't picking up that first down with Jackson Moy on the field. And Deshaun Bishop,
did they do a jet sweep on 4th and 1? Was that 1 or 3rd and 1? Did they do that jet sweep where they went side to side?
Florida.
Yeah, didn't Florida do one of those?
3rd and 1, they did a jet sweep, I think, and it got blown up by. Was it Boo there? Boo and
Ricky Gibson
or Gibson?
It was the 4th down.
Yeah,
Ricky Gibson got it. Yeah.
Where you're like, what are y'all doing?
Was there a play in the game that Florida didn't run some type of jet motion? Because it was I mean, those guys had to be exhausted. There were guys that never ran
it worked
down
2 years ago.
Tired.
I mean, it worked last year too. Like, they did that all in Tennessee. I mean, I think it was Elijah Herring last year and company really struggled with that in space. Like, that motion and everything else killed Tennessee last year in Gainesville, if I recall.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was obvious why he did it. It's just, I told Landon, it's like that guy from Arkansas that never punts and only kicks onside kicks. It's like, this isn't. It's probably like the people who watch teams go from, but he coached at a FCS school in North Carolina during COVID, quit that job, and he's back at a high school in North Carolina, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Doesn't work at the college level, apparently.
Sure.
Yeah. You should have stayed at the small private school in Arkansas, buddy. Some people need to know their limits.
Yeah.
It's a cool story, but it's one of those that I'm sure people, when the wing tee started going away, it was the quote in the room of the Titans. Who does he think he is? The New York Jets? Like, it's like, this isn't good football to me. Can we stop?
I'm doing if I'm a coach, I'm doing 4 verts over and over again. I'm just spamming 4 verts I am full on air raid. We're bombing it down the field over and over again because I'm gonna hit one, and that's what's gonna happen.
That's all you need.
That's what we're doing. That's all I need. And then if interception, great. It's a long punt. It's fine.
Sure. Yeah.
What am I worried about?
That.
I don't know why more people don't just turn to Chase Thomas and the Chase Thomas podcast for their in-depth football insight. I don't know. I don't get it. True or false, Caleb? Mike Matthews needs more reps at receiver, and do you think it's better suited at slot or out wide based on where Tennessee's at with their receivers at the moment?
Yeah, he's got to get more. He's got to get more reps, and I think at this point it is at slot. He is in for Chaz Nimrod. I think that's a game. I don't know how he stayed in after that drop. That's a play that I think you come out.
But he's open. Always open, Chaz Nimrod. Like, the guy is always open.
Let me ask you this, and I haven't watched the tape. I don't know how he's always open. He does get behind a guy on that seam route, but I mean, I would always be open on the field too because you don't have to worry about me. So, like, what are we?
I don't know.
Why is he always open?
That's what I'm saying. He's the ultimate glass half full, glass half empty guy right now. where, I mean, there is something to be said about getting open, but you also have to convert on these. And I don't know. Some of those drops were on him and some were on Nico. It was just dependent.
And I think you can differentiate the ones. That last one for me, and I'm not saying he would be benched the next game for me, but I don't know how they keep him in there, especially when you have a guy like Mike Matthews, a guy who catches that ball, the speed he has a chance to go to the house. I mean, probably doesn't happen. They had 8 in coverage, but I'd like to find out.
Well, especially because Dante didn't play until the end of the game. So if Dante's out, who's been your best receiver all year, what do you have to lose to try Mike Matthews out wide? Like, he had, 13 snaps, I think, Landon? But I just don't really understand it. Like, you see freshman receivers playing everywhere. Like, what do you have to lose? The offense isn't cooking. It's not like you're having these issues where you're like, oh, I can't try Mike Matthews. We're having too much success out wide right now. We can't get him on the field. I don't really understand not trying with Mike Matthews at this point, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't understand the whole like we can't play freshman thing because it was like, I mean, no offense to Christian Harrison, but Boo Carter was, freshman of the week this week.
He was great.
Like let him play. Like I mean, there's a reason why you recruit him. You expect him to play at some point. If now is the time, let's see it. I mean, you mentioned there's other freshmen playing. You got Ryan Wingo at Texas. You got Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. Ryan Williams, who we'll see in Neyland for Alabama. I mean, there's all these guys that Mike Matthews was right up there with in rankings or even higher than, and he can't get more than 10 snaps.
Yeah.
And 10 snaps, that's fine. If you're going to target him some and let him see what he's kind of made of, but if you don't even target him, what, I don't understand what the point in that. I don't care if it's outside or slot. I just think we need to see some opportunities of him to get the ball in his hands.
That's what I was about to say. I don't think it matters where at this point. He's a really good player. Get him on the field.
Yeah, especially Squirrel White, every time he goes to attempt to catch a pass, he has to come out of the game. I mean,
and he had a good game on Saturday, but he's battling through it, man. Squirrel is battling through it. Mine is not even Squirrel; it's the Brew spot. Brew didn't have a catch in this game. Brew's obviously battling thing with his hand,
but he had a jet sweep. Wait, what sense does this make?
Brew McCoy should never have a jet sweep. I love Brew; he's a warrior. He's done a lot for this university. Brew should not be getting jet sweeps. Let's go ahead and toss that one out of the playbook.
Yeah.
But also, if he's not able, if you're not going to throw to his way because of whatever, or maybe it didn't have anything to do with his hand, I just don't understand that spot because you already don't have Dante Thornton, who is mostly not available until the end here, and he had a huge play in overtime. Obviously, that's kind of a wild development of this season. Is I was pretty optimistic about Dante coming into this year, but I didn't think Dante was going to be the biggest big play threat for Tennessee. He's the most reliable guy for Tennessee. And we haven't even talked about Chris Brazzell, who I think had his most complete game as a ball. So maybe that is a bigger deal going forward. But I look at the Brew snaps and I'm and the Squirrel snaps, to your point too, Landon, I don't know. This was an opportunity on Saturday because Dante was banged up, Brew was banged up, Squirrel was banged up. Your offense shut out again in the first half. If you're not going to give Mike Matthews some serious snaps this past week against Florida, I just don't see it against Alabama. And then Kentucky, obviously, they're going to, they have a really good defensive line. It seems like Tennessee's going to have to max protect a lot to deal with the multiple NFL guys on Kentucky's defensive line that I don't know when you see them. I don't know. We're kind of running out of time here in Mike Matthews' freshman year to really see him make any kind of big impact for this passing game. And I won't understand it.
Yeah, and we don't see it at practice. I mean, maybe there is some kind of pecking order where he just, I don't know, hasn't performed, but we heard this whole offseason how good he is.
Yeah.
We saw it in the spring game. And when he's gotten an opportunity, he scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
It's crazy what happens when you target him.
You mentioned that in practice, and we hear all this stuff. Maybe, this guy's just a great practice player, and maybe he's not a gamer. Do coaches not have that same mindset of Jarrett Garantano? All we heard was how good he was in practice. I mean, same for Joe Milton before he went down. Hendon Hooker took over. I mean, how good he was in practice. There were people ready to claim him the Patriots starter in camp, and I don't know if coaches at some point do they not decide hey, maybe this guy's not good, or maybe this guy's better in games. I mean, Josh Dobbs didn't start for essentially 2 years because apparently he wasn't great in practice, and then he goes out there and you're like, maybe we should have been playing him a lot longer.
I think that's what makes it complicated. What makes you want to pull your hair out as a coach is you're like, I get why they struggle to play guys. And we're not saying this is the case of Mike Matthews,
Right.
but it's just guys who don't practice well. It's got to be like hard for them to see the majority of the week and the majority of their time saying like, well, what do you want me to do? Like what I'm seeing all week long,
Right.
I don't think is going to work on Saturday. But then they're like, deep down, there are some guys who just for whatever reason, the light click, it clicks when the game's on, and they're just natural gamers. But you have to put them out there. And I can understand why coaches who are pretty risk averse by nature don't want to play that game, because I think more often than not, they're probably right. Like if you're not a good practice player, then you're probably not going to be equipped to play well in the games. But the outliers make it hard for them.
It's understandable in the case of someone, let's say, because this started with Mike Matthews, a freshman who you haven't seen play yet. That's more understandable that you can't just roll him out there and hope. But I really don't understand it in the inverse way of like, oh, this guy's great in practice, but every time we turn on game film, all we're doing is correcting him. It's like, all right, who cares at that point he's getting in practice? Like, we have to go with someone else. We have to give someone else the opportunity. That's what I don't understand. And if you look at, opposite side of the ball and the DBs, like the last few years, you're going, these guys are struggling. I guess the guys behind them just aren't as good in practice. Okay, well, let's find out if maybe they're better in games, because something's not clicking from the practice field to the game field. I don't know what it is, but it's not. We gotta try something else.
And I think it's a little different because Mike Matthews is playing some.
Right.
Like he is getting some snaps, so it can't be all bad in practice, or he would never see the field. So I just don't understand why we aren't utilizing him a little bit within this offense. It's already struggling. I mean, what do you have to lose?
This receiving group, there's been maybe 3 guys who have earned the majority of the snaps, and they're all 3 injured right now.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Chris Brazel 4th. Man, that's about it.
Yeah,
and that's a huge thing. Like I hope, I guess this is 2 parts. Dante Thornton has to be as close. Like every Vol fan has to have their fingers crossed all week long that Dante Thornton is able to go right out of the gate. He has to be with the opening offense. He has to be part of the opening script against Alabama. Dante Thornton is, I think, going to be his health is going to be paramount for Tennessee to have a real chance against Alabama on Saturday. I think Dante Thornton's gonna have to have a big game. Like he doesn't have to have the Jalen Hyatt 5 touchdowns, but he does need to have a big game. I think this is a prime big play. Dante Thornton has to make a name and kind of put the team on his back deep, because I think he has the best connection with Nico and is the best deep play, most reliable deep play threat that Tennessee has. He's averaging 36 yards a catch right now?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Dante is
something dumb.
Yeah. And he has 11 catches?
Maybe.
And he's a touchdown machine. Like he's elite, and that's not even counting. Like he has 2 awesome catches that were wiped off due to penalties. Like Dante's been, when he's healthy, Dante's been Tennessee's best receiver, and I don't even think it's close.
Yeah. Which I'm glad you mentioned scripted plays. That was the first true game all year. That's not counting UTC and Kent State. No insult intended for UTC, all insult intended for Kent State. That the scripted drive, the first drive of the game for Tennessee, finally felt like a Josh Heupel scripted drive. That's been his bread and butter. Is like, hey, whatever we decide on Thursday night that we're going to do, we're doing it. And we're going to execute it really well and move the ball down the field and score points. Yeah. And they do it, and then Nico makes me look like an idiot, and I'm going, run him, and fumbles the football at a mesh point. And so I'm glad that's my silver lining for this offense is the scripted plays finally looked like Josh Heupel scripted plays.
You forget. I mean, remember that stat, the first 2 years of Heupel, of like what they were doing to teams in the first quarter? Like they just were always up, like 10-0, 17. They were a great bet. Like even against Georgia in 2021, I was like, I remember betting a buddy, or I was a Georgia fan. I was like, I bet you, I don't think Tennessee's gonna win, but I bet you Tennessee's up on Georgia after the first quarter. I bet you Georgia falls behind. And
that first quarter spread the last couple of years have been the easiest bet on DraftKings. They're losing money off Josh Heupel in the first quarter.
That man was a first quarter assassin. Let's bring it back. We used to be in Robert Country.
And he's really for Tennessee, if in the Josh Heupel era so far, and this year's been an outlier, if they're getting the ball or their first drive of the game, whether they've deferred or they're receiving, is usually really, really solid. Scripted plays really solid. And then if they get the ball first out of the half, you usually go back to scripted plays. Sometimes you can when you get the ball back, but it changes. There's variables there. But usually Tennessee's really good getting the ball out of halftime and really good first drive of the game. Like that's his bread and butter. So I guess if you want to say how's our offense improving, how are they looking? You look at Arkansas, get the ball back, they score. You look at Florida, yes, that turnover happened, but it was a very unfortunate turnover where the scripted plays work. So like it's looking more and more like the offense we've known under Josh Heupel.
I think so. I'm pretty optimistic. I think that, but I also think this is a do or die week. If you're going to really break out as a passing unit this year, like this is the game. Because I mean, Kentucky, I don't see that being the breakout point for Tennessee. And Mississippi State, we'll see. But Georgia, like that's an ultimate. Like I have to see it to believe it. Even with Georgia's secondary looking like it is. Like if we're going to have the big passing game breakout moment, I think it's at Neyland on Saturday afternoon against this Alabama secondary. Fact or fiction, Landon? Keenan Pili is a brutal blow for this Vols defense to lose.
I think true. Now, like not really like immediate, like starter wise. I think Jeremiah Telander has played well.
Yeah.
But I think depth wise, it is a huge problem because now you're playing guys who probably like, besides like a couple of snaps here and there, probably weren't going to see that much playing time. You have Edwin Spillman, who's been out with a wrist injury right now. So it's kind of, you have four guys. You have Caleb Perry, Jalen Smith, Arion Carter, and Jeremiah Telander. And that's all you got. And that's a group that likes to rotate a little bit. So I think it's a huge, and just for his experience and everything, and he was having a really good year. I think that is a huge blow for Tennessee's defense. I mean, he wore the helmet communication. Like, he's a leader on this defense. I absolutely think it's a huge blow for this team and this defense specifically.
I think it's a huge blow, Caleb, but I also think losing Arion would actually hurt more at this point than Pili. Because I think Telander, the drop-off from Pili to Telander, I don't think is going to be stark. I think it is a difference. I think it's maybe A- Pili, B+ Telander right now, but I'm pretty high on Telander. I think Telander's getting better and better. He's played a lot of snaps. He played a lot last year. I think Telander and Carter will be solid. I worry. Jalen Smith really struggled in space on Saturday night. You lose Carter like you did last year, I think that's more of an issue. Like, even if you have Pili there, Carter does a lot more, and I think the drop-off from Carter to his backup is far larger than Pili to Telander. I think fans, like, Pili is awesome, and I hope, honestly, if he wants to come back next year as GA, whatever, like, he just seems like an awesome dude, and you could tell by Heupel and the way the team talks about him, everything else, that, like, it's brutal. Like, it just sucks that he's never going to play an Alabama game 2 years at Tennessee. Like, he's not going to be in that moment, but Telander's good, and I don't think there's going to be a huge drop-off there from what I've seen, but I do think if you were to lose Carter and you're in the Jalen Smith zone, and Jalen, like, hopefully will get there too, but he did not play much at all last year, and he's just now started to play a little bit. I mean, maybe you do Perry there a little bit too, but I look at the drop-off from Carter to who backs him up as a big drop as opposed to Pili to Telander. Do you agree?
Yeah, probably. So, I mean, I think this linebacking group as a whole, Keenan Pili hurts. I mean, you never want to lose a starter, let alone a depth piece there. So, I mean, it hurts talent-wise to an extent, but it's more so of one, it's another body you lost there. Two, leadership. Yeah, I think I agree talent-wise. Arion Carter seems to be the most talented, just all-around linebacker you have. So, I probably do agree with that take. I think Tennessee's in a much, much better position than they were even just a year ago, but especially like 2 years ago. I think you would notice Arion Carter before you notice Keenan Pili gone. And I think that speaks some to Keenan Pili's leadership. I really do. I think he has this defense, and he's a big part of why this defense is as a whole in a better position than they were 2 years ago when you have a linebacker gone and you looked like an unrecognizable team. So I think as big of a loss as he is, I don't think it's backbreaking at this point. In fact, I thought the defense as a whole, and I thought the linebackers they settled in where they looked really disorganized. A lot of those pre-snap movements and jet sweeps were throwing them off in the first quarter, it seemed. Not that they played bad, but it seemed like they were just a step behind. they seemed to settle in throughout that game and play really, really well. So I think I'd say Aaron Carter's a bigger loss at this point, but I think we'll really find out about Keenan Pili's how big of an impact that is when you play and I know he only played. I mean, how many snaps did he even play?
He went out early. Not as early as the Virginia game because he only played a couple there when he went out last year.
I think it was the second drive, wasn't it? Second defensive drive. So I mean, we'll really find out with 4 full quarters and trying to get settled in without him on the field. But I thought they looked really sound, and I mean, Aaron Carter's obviously a big part of that, and a guy that had an interception in that game.
Yeah, Aaron Carter, another guy. We talk about Boo Carter is the next great, the close thing we did Eric Berry. Aaron Carter is the next great Tennessee linebacker. Like he's different. You just see it. Like he's just going to continue to be a madman for this Tennessee linebacking unit, and they need him healthy.
This is a huge week too.
Yeah.
I mean, with Jalen Milroe, this is probably not the ideal week to be losing that starter in the middle with a guy that can run like Jalen Milroe can.
But Telander's best quality is tackling. Like Telander is actually good in space. The biggest worry I have at Telander is coverage. Like that's my biggest issue.
That's another thing. Ryan Williams and those tight ends, like that's going to be a difficult matchup for those guys. But got to do it.
Got to do it. Next man up. Final thing here. Tennessee beats Alabama how on Saturday, Caleb?
Yeah, more explosive plays. There's not enough explosive plays to expose better teams in Florida. I mean, you didn't have enough explosive plays to beat Arkansas, who's they're not a great team. They're probably barely a good team. It happens. I don't know what our explosive play rate is so far this year, but it can't be good. You got to hit more on them. I think your defense is going to do what your defense has done. Again, don't see this being a game you hold them under 20. But I think you hold them to a fair an amount that is enough to win a football game. But can your offense capitalize and score enough explosive plays or create enough explosive plays that lead to scoring opportunities?
Yeah, they're 11th in 40+ yard plays nationally. They're way back here, and
Tennessee is 11th nationally
in 40+ yard plays. Yeah.
Oh man. There's not a lot of football yards there this year.
Yeah, 20+ yards. They are. They're far back here. Wow, I don't even see them. I'm in the 70s. I don't even know where they are there.
Oh, don't read that off.
Yeah, 25th though in 10+ yards. So not as great, but I bet you how many of those are just Dante Thornton or Dylan Sampson runs after contact? Like how many of those plays are just those two guys are responsible, right?
Yeah, got to be a lot.
Yeah. Landon, what about you? Vols beat Alabama Saturday. Why?
I think this is kind of like a every week answer, but I think turnovers are a big part. I mean, you had 2 against Florida. You also got 2 for that defense, but also you stopped them a number of times on 4th down and still had to go to overtime with them. I think Tennessee has to win the turnover battle for this to even be like a game late. Obviously the big plays have to come into play. Like you have to hit on those. You probably have to have more than Alabama does to win this football game. They're a team that can, have the big plays with Ryan Williams and some of those good receivers. Jalen Milroe is electric, with the football in his hands. So you got to keep an eye on that. But also Alabama gives up a lot of explosive plays on defense. Like they have a young secondary. I think they're starting a true freshman corner. So I think this is, like you said earlier, like this is the week to kind of get this passing offense going. I think you're absolutely right. Like you have to get going this week because I think the opportunities are going to be there. You just got to do it.
I think if we look up, to me, I've just circled, if Dante Thornton has 100+ yards receiving, I think Tennessee wins. I think this is one of those where it's like, okay, they hit some bombs. I don't think they're going to be able to get away with winning the script that they've won with their 2 out of their first 3 SEC games. I just don't think that's going to happen in realistic. Because the worst of Jalen Milroe is still really bad. Like we've seen some actual, it's been rough, and this offensive line could get pushed around here, especially in the interior, by what Tennessee's throwing at them. But the best of Jalen Milroe is still a Heisman quarterback. Like it's still one of the scariest guys in space, and Tennessee has had trouble with these kind of guys in the past, and I just don't think it's not fair ask this Tennessee defense to hold this team to under 20 to get another win at home against Bama. So the offense, Samson's going to get his. Samson's going to be fine. I think the offensive line will be a little bit better again this week, but these Alabama linebackers are really good. Nico's got to be on his P's and Q's there because that's a huge strength for Alabama. If the deep ball is not hitting in this game, because they took a lot of deep shots in this past game against Florida, if they don't connect, they don't have to connect on all of them, but they don't connect on 2 to 3 to 4, and multiple of those include maybe Chaz and or Dante, because it just feels like those are the best bets deep for Tennessee. I don't see the path. So if we look in the stat sheet, like Dante Thornton, 120 yards receiving, I think it was probably a good day for Tennessee.
Yeah, I agree with
that. I'm going to look too, like how many yards does Nico rush for? Because he's going that Vanderbilt gave up 0 sacks to Alabama.
Yeah.
I don't think that was lack of opportunities. I think that's Avier being able to escape the pocket.
Yeah, he ran the ball like 20 times. It's just he can't
for
really
only
sack
56
him.
yards.
He's on the move.
I mean, he wasn't necessarily breaking off big chunk runs. I think as long as it was 12, like he wasn't.
They're running basically like a glorified triple over there sometimes.
Right. So I think that's another stat to look at is how many sacks did Alabama have? If it's more than 2, I would be shocked if you win that game, because that means that was a lot of pressure on Nico all day.
I think that's fair. Landon, Caleb, what can the good folks check out from y'all over at More Important Issues and Fox Sports Knoxville this week?
You want to go?
I'll go. We'll be live Thursday in studio, doing our normal Thursday routine as we prep for this third Saturday in October meeting. It'll be a good live show. I think the vibes will be high after beating a rival Florida, back-to-back rivalry weeks. Then, of course, we'll have our tailgate Saturday. It'll be starting a little bit earlier this week with a 3:30 game. Hopefully the commercial breaks don't follow that normal 3:30 CBS schedule. But yeah, so we've got a lot going on this week. And then, of course, we'll reset on Sunday with a recap of that game. Hopefully good news only.
I'm so excited. We cannot discount how tired I was at these night games. These night games have been brutal. Like they're so long, and then it's like after midnight, and you're like, I got to write and do it. I'm like, I can't. I'm too old. I'm not built for this. This has got to stop. The 3:30 spot is just the perfect time. I also don't like waiting all day. Like you're just like, I want to know. I need to know how this game's going to go. I don't really like the 12 either. Like it seems too early. Where like I'm actually not acclimated for this. This is going to be too intense. 3:30 is just perfect. We could play every game at 3:30. I would do it. I don't know if y'all would.
If the game starts between
ending that night, like. Yeah, but you have time to like go do something after.
Yes,
6 o'clock's yeah, 6 o'clock's an okay start as well. I think you get 1, maybe 2 noon games a year. You're comfortable. 1, maybe 2 night games a year. You're comfortable. Everything else 3:36 at the start latest.
I like it. Landon, Caleb, thank you guys as always, and I'll talk to y'all next week.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.